After the seemingly random announcement the other day that Doctor Who will in fact be returning to our screens next year for a big, bombastic Christmas special written by Russell T Davies and team, the floodgates have opened. It's been so long since we've actually had proper Doctor Who news, leaks, etc. to discuss. There is so much stuff to break down in today's video. We've got news and an air date, well, rough air date for The War Between the Land and the Sea, the spin-off series featuring Sea Devils. It's kind of, from what I've heard, it's like Romeo and Juliet, but with sea devils and humans. And a whole host of other things going on, of course, but more interestingly, we have also heard from very reliable sources, who we will break down, we're going to read the quotes, that Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf, that whole team currently working on the show, are going to be departing from Doctor Who after December 2026. They're coming back to either do one big special or a couple of little specials, then they're leaving. There's a load to unpack there. We've also got insider reports as to what actually happened between Disney and the BBC. As I mentioned at the start of this video, it was quite random that they were just like, you haven't had any Doctor Who news for a while? Well, the show's coming back and we've binned off Disney. Like that came out of nowhere. But we might actually know why that suddenly happened and what went wrong behind the scenes. Why this Marvelification of Doctor Who, which is, that's the quote the insider uses, and I mean, I made a video called The Marvelification of Doctor Who when this was happening. We could all see it, but we're going to break down what actually happened behind the scenes with Disney, with Russell, etc., and who might the new showrunner be? Because, as I say, the insiders are saying that Russell T Davies... I mean, there's even a quote from one insider that everybody on the internet is convinced the insider is just Russell T Davies talking about himself in the third person, because when you read the quote, it very much sounds like the way Russell talks. Let's just jump in straight away with our first story, The War Between the Land and the Sea. Pete McTighe and a bunch of other people involved in this show have posted this new poster, and I can't lie, that looks so cool, to their Instagram. So for those of you who don't know, this is, as I say, the sea people, sea devils included, coming up to Earth, getting angry, fighting back, and there's a big global threat without the Doctor, so we will not be seeing Ncuti Gatwa, Billie Piper, whoever the next Doctor may be. They are not in this spin-off show. We also have a closer look at the new Sea Devil design here. They are still technically out of focus in the background, but they look so good. Honestly, I think this is one of the best reimaginings of a classic villain that the show has ever done. This is exactly, like, I mean, we're going to be talking about the Disney partnership falling to pieces, but this is why the partnership with Disney was a good idea, to get redesigns of classic monsters on this level of budget. Like, compare this to the Legend of the Sea Devils look. I love the Legend of the Sea Devils. It's nostalgic, like the look of the Sea Devils, but they look like real creatures here, and they need to be a lot more emotive for this series. So yeah, I'm very, very glad. It's coming out in December. They haven't said when in December, and part of me thinks the way they've worded this makes it seem like it's gonna all drop at once on iPlayer. Now, the big controversy here is it's December for us in the UK on iPlayer. But Disney still own the international rights, and they're not going to air it this year. Disney Plus are keeping the show till, we don't know, but we guess February of next year, which, yeah, I can imagine that causing a bit of a stir. Maybe it will change. These things are subject to change if enough people kick off, but also I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out on Disney Plus in December. They're not going to want to put it against all the Christmas stuff, but at least we know in the UK on iPlayer we will be getting it this December. Russell T Davies himself has said, "This is a huge, spectacular Christmas treat, with heroes and monsters and battles and romance in a world on the edge of disaster. And remember, watch the seas." I don't think the plot itself is going to have anything to do with Christmas, because I don't even know if this was when they were originally intending to air it, but point being, it's coming out in December. It kind of feels like maybe they're worried about it, but also Pete McTighe and Russell T Davies keep banging on about how proud they are of it and how good it is, and I do believe that it has potential to be really good. When you look at a spin-off like Torchwood Children of Earth, like that was brilliant. That's one of the best pieces of Hooniverse media ever made. So if it comes close to that, I'll be incredibly happy, but all remains to be seen. That's your spin-off news. So now, before we talk about the future of the show, and what the future actually holds, whether Russell is departing, and who's saying he is, who's saying he's not, let's just answer the big question that's been on everybody's mind since kind of this time last year, to be honest. I remember it was the moment everyone was like, oh dear, something's going wrong, was when Ncuti Gatwa went on the Graham Norton show almost exactly a year ago. It was November of last year, and on the Graham Norton show he was like, yeah, we're going to be filming Series 3 in a couple of weeks, it's all going to plan, I love playing the Doctor, and then Series 3 didn't come. The BBC cut that quote out of the Graham Norton show, and fans were panicking. Quite rightfully by the end, but they were panicking. Nobody knew what was going to happen to Doctor Who. Why were Disney not involved? What are the behind-the-scenes politics? Well, a new report into the end of Disney's deal with the BBC for Doctor Who has alleged that part of the reason for its demise was the plans to Marvelise the franchise and their failure to work. Now, look, I think it's abundantly apparent. If you look at the timeline, Russell T Davies, we know for a fact, watched the Disney Plus shows like WandaVision, Loki, etc. He was vocally praising or criticising them when they came out, which was January of 2021, mid-pandemic. This was during the streaming boom. Loads of people subscribed to Disney Plus and were like, yeah, this is the future. I mean, I was about to go to university as a television production student, and we were sold a dream. They were like, look at the statistics. TV it's shooting off. There's 100% of it made more than last year. Well, yeah, because we're in a pandemic. But point is, everyone thought streaming was the future. Everyone thought that's where TV was headed. So Russell signs this deal, but then it appears that that's not where TV's headed. If you look at Disney Plus, I think it's only really, off the top of my head, The Mandalorian, and maybe just The Mandalorian, that has more than 2 seasons. Every other Disney Plus commissioned show has either had 1 or 2 seasons and then bowed out. So the fact that Doctor Who got 2 plus a spin-off, not too bad. Now, Deadline reports that the Disney deal fell apart due to concerns that Doctor Who failed to break out from its existing fan base and appeal to a mainstream American audience. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I just think if you look back in 2011, Doctor Who was becoming more mainstream in America. It was becoming this big thing. It felt not Americanized, but they cleverly set a couple of episodes in America. The Doctor wore a Stetson, and it was like, yeah, this is going to be a big international show. I can't fathom, and I mean this with all the greatest respect in the world, but why start with space babies and singing goblins? When you look at it, space babies, singing goblins, Jinx Monsoon's pretty cool to be fair, but I feel like that character wasn't given enough to do. They were quite one note, if you'll pardon the pun, because of the music. But then Boom is a solid episode, but there's no sort of memorable villain, and you just keep going through episode by episode by episode, and there aren't actually really any really memorable villains at all. Then you bring back Sutek, which alienates a bunch of the audience. And you could bring back Sutek in a way that doesn't alienate the audience. Omega, Sutek, any of these old characters, bring them back, recontextualise them within the story. The perfect avenue there, which was genius from Russell, was this whole idea of the gods. Sutek is the god of death. The Doctor's fighting gods. This is a new god. That makes so much sense. But instead, he went with some weird anagram and then Susan, tying it back to Susan, who the modern audience won't have a clue who she is, and it just became really convoluted and bizarre. So I do think it makes complete sense that it failed to pick up this new mainstream audience. There's another interesting quote which I initially forgot to put in my first recording, so sorry for the lack of face cam here, but one of these sources reflects on the fact that Ncuti Gatwa left the role so early, and there's a quote that's been causing quite the stir on the internet in which they say that the show suffered because Gatwa never fully embraced the role. They're quoted as saying, "There is more to the role than performing. You have to be an ambassador for the brand and embrace being this generation's Doctor. Matt Smith and David Tennant fully understand that responsibility it carried." Now, I can see both sides to this argument. There's a lot of people saying that is the least of Doctor Who's worries. I mean, I've just spent 2 minutes talking about a bunch of the problems script-wise with Doctor Who, but I do think, one, it's wild that Jodie Whittaker isn't included. She was probably one of, if not the best brand ambassador for Doctor Who that the show ever had. But at the same time, I do understand what they're saying. Ncuti Gatwa was seen smoking on set. He posted quite funny but inappropriate Instagram stories. He said in interviews, "Me and John Pertwee are the only doctors who dress like insert word here that will get me demonetised." And I think it opens up a debate of, is that, because Doctor Who's a family show, is that an appropriate way for the main star to be behaving? I'm not going to say yes or no, because why does my opinion matter here? But I can see why, maybe behind the scenes, people at the BBC and Ncuti would come to odds over whether or not he can post certain things online. I think it's clear he loved playing the Doctor, but also it was a role to him. He was an actor, and that was another role. Whereas Jodie Whittaker, for example, sort of fully embraced, and still does embrace, the character of the Doctor to the fans outside of the show. As well as its big budget, amongst other things, Deadline said that the show's budget was between $6 million, approximately $8.5 million, and $8 million, approximately $10.5 million per episode. Now, these figures have been contested in various places. We don't actually know how much was spent. There were reports at the time that were saying like £12 million per episode, but people like Benjamin Cook, who would probably kind of know these things on Twitter, have said that's false. That's not true. There were also reports in January talking about the fact that Disney weren't actually giving that much to Doctor Who. There have also been claims from other various sources that a lot of the budget went to specific standard, like cameras, because Disney Plus had to have like Ultra 4K specific cameras, but we don't quite know. Point is, the budget was massively exaggerated in the press. I remember at the time, one of my uni lecturers was like, "Whoa, I watched The Star Beast and I was expecting the budget to be," and it's like, well, no, it still kind of looks like Doctor Who. It looks great, and it does look better with a bigger budget, but it was never ridiculously expensive. This article says that it's putting the value of the deal at as much as $168 million, approximately $220 million. So it is a lot of money here. Disney invested a substantial amount in this. I think they were kind of sold the dream of, look at how successful Russell T Davies' Doctor Who was in the early 2000s. Look at the sensation that was. That's what you're going to get if you partner with us. They partnered with them, and it didn't quite play out like that. Once again, I want to stress there is no one person at fault here. So everyone who says this is all Russell's fault or this is all Disney's fault, I really don't think it is. I think it is just 101 different factors. It's being reported that it was pretty apparent from early on that this wasn't for the long term. A former Disney executive has told Deadline. Everyone got the impression that it wasn't doing what it needed to on Disney Plus to be sustained. Now, we don't know how early into the process they're talking. I genuinely reckon this could have been after series, or mid-season 1, if the viewing figures just weren't there, or even with the church on Ruby Road. This article's claiming that they've known this for a long time, which is a shame, because when you've committed to doing 2 seasons and a spin-off, it's what it's saying, it's setting up a Marvel universe. You've committed to a spin-off before the first 2 seasons are even done. That's kind of crazy if you don't think it's going to go big. But another source added that the writing's been on the wall for ages. There has been a complete lack of enthusiasm over at Disney. Now, I think this lack of enthusiasm definitely wasn't there at the start, because if you look at the promotion of season 1, they were putting it on the subway, they were putting it everywhere, there were adverts everywhere, it was in the Disney parks. They clearly hoped and wanted and had faith that this could be a success, but I think after season 1 and after the reception of the Empire of Death, everyone at Disney probably became quite like, okay, we'll distance ourselves a bit. I do just think it's a shame though that they've sort of, from what it appears, they've kept the BBC dangling and hanging on for a very long time. That's probably why we lost Ncuti Gatwa as well, because if it became apparent that Disney are pulling out, he's like, okay, I'm not sinking with this ship. And he left early. He was, like, not able to just do the season 3, then go. Disney, BBC Studios, and the BBC all declined to comment to Deadline. So, as I say, these are all industry reporters. There's definitely some truth here, but you never quite know what's going on. But it doesn't stop there, because Doctor Who had been left on hiatus following the departure of Ncuti Gatwa via a reshot ending and its last-minute reveal of Billie Piper in an unexplained role in the wake of Gatwa's 2-season run on the show, which drew mixed reviews and the show's lowest rating since 2005. Fans had raised questions over whether Russell T Davies as showrunner should continue. We now know that he will be returning for next year's Christmas special, and potentially more. Lindsay Salt, we did go over this quote in, I think, 2 days ago's video. This is what the director of BBC's drama said about the future of Doctor Who. She's saying, "We'd like to thank Disney Plus for being a terrific global partner and collaborator over the past 2 seasons. Spin-offs coming soon. Thanks, guys." There's not too much to delve into there, but one thing from Deadline which did really intrigue me and maybe is correct. As I say, this is from insider sources. They can't name their sources for obvious reasons, but apparently a well-placed industry source said that Doctor Who became too woke for Trump's USA, and this was a factor in Disney's minds when it came to a renewal. To judge whether politics could have been a factor in Disney's decision, one has to look no further than Jimmy Kimmel's brief suspension, which was insane. I do think there's probably an element of truth to this, and it's quite scary that this is the case, but Donald Trump, I mean, this is not a political video, but Donald Trump is an egocentric maniac. He's like a borderline cartoon villain. The fact that he's tearing down part of the White House, and it's just, but look, we'll stick to talking about Doctor Who before I go on a rant. Deadline has further speculated that a Disney renewal would have required showrunner Russell T Davies to dial down his commitment to diversity. Now, they do stress here that that is speculation on behalf of Deadline rather than the actual source saying that, but as I say, look at the Jimmy Kimmel situation. America, and the world in general, is in kind of a scary place, and Doctor Who, Russell prides himself on the fact that this iteration of Doctor Who is so, diverse and inclusive of all. But another key factor, which I think was probably one of the biggest things in Disney's minds, which doesn't take a genius to notice, the ratings were not up to much. Now, I did hear on one of my live streams the other day, someone sent, and they are correct, the viewing figures for Doctor Who, like the BRB viewing figure ratings after the fact, did actually go up slightly. Not massively, but there were more people watching Doctor Who Season 2 than were initially thought at the time. I'm aware that's, still not enough. This show needed more viewing figures. And I mean, they're not comparable shows, but if you look at something like the UK Celebrity Traitors, that is pulling in 12 million on the BBC. It is still possible to do this. So Doctor Who needs to be pulling in more viewing figures for the BBC to be happy with it going forward. Deadline sources also said that the BBC and Disney had initially planned to make a statement about the future of Doctor Who after the premiere of the spin-off series The War Between the Land and the Sea, but Disney moved this announcement up. Now that's interesting because I'd speculated that it would have been the BBC who'd sort of got tired of Disney and gone, look, we're going to release The War Between the Land and the Sea in December, you release it whenever, we've got to announce this soon, bam. But it appears that it's Disney who wanted to move the announcement up. Maybe they finally hit the milestone in their heads of, oh, well, we'll watch the viewing figures for Seasons 1 and Season 2 and the 60th specials on Disney+, and when it hits, I don't know, the end of October, we'll say, okay, we'll make our decision. But whatever's happened, they've made their decision. They've told the BBC, let's just announce it. I do think it's bizarre that The War Between the Land and the Sea isn't coming out at the same time for everybody across the world. Concluding this little part, obviously we'll talk next about the rumours that Russell's leaving, but with the announced Doctor Who Christmas special 15 months away, the BBC now has time to consider how to fund a show that has lost a large chunk of its budget. We don't know how much it's lost, but it's definitely lost some. Doctor Who can be made with BBC and BBC Studios. Look at Doctor Who Flux. But that, even Flux, has got to be like 4 or 5 years ago now. There are whisperings which are slightly less official, or from slightly less reliable sources, that Doctor Who's trying to find a new streaming partner. But I can't see that happening at the moment, because surely they're scared off by what's happened with Disney. And as I explained at the start of this video, the streaming model is kind of collapsing. TV's in a tricky, moment. Would it be wise to make another deal with someone else? Because then you've got part of Doctor Who on Disney, part of it on the BBC, part of it on maybe Amazon or Netflix. Is that a good idea? But then how do you fund it without doing so? It's all really tricky. But Russell and team bowing out. Bad Wolf have that huge TARDIS set which they refused to take down quite rightfully. Are they all leaving? Because if Russell goes, it seems quite apparent that Bad Wolf isn't directly Russell's, but Jane Tranter, Julie Gardner, that whole team, they are the OG team with Russell. Would they all bow out together? Well, Doctor Who is set to return to BBC One next year with a Christmas special after bosses declared that the show would remain at the heart of the BBC. The corporation is to go into it alone after Disney pulled out funding for the sci-fi show several months after the last episode. Now insiders are predicting that the festive episode for 2026 could be the swan song for showrunner Russell T Davies, who looks set to bow out ahead of a full series being produced in 2027. Obviously, everybody's first is Russell leaving came from the fact that the article stated that Russell T Davies has agreed, and other people have also looked at his Instagram. He's a frequent poster on Instagram. He didn't post like a picture, what would you call it, like a post. He didn't make a post, he made a story talking about Doctor Who, which could be us looking too deep into it, but I don't know. If things were completely fine, I think we'd expect a picture. Maybe that's chronically online thinking. But if he does leave, it's likely to be alongside BBC Studios' Cardiff-based co-production partner, Bad Wolf, with whom he had always worked closely on Doctor Who. One source said, expect bells and whistles on this festive outing, as it could be the final one for Russell as showrunner. Daleks, snowmen, let's see what he comes up with. Now, that is the quote that a lot of people are speculating is actually just Russell saying, yeah, this is me. There's no confirmation that it is Russell saying that about himself in the third person. But expect bells and whistles, Daleks, snowmen, Cybermen, marvellous. It could be. It could be. We don't know though. In a statement yesterday, the BBC said that it remained fully committed to the show and will announce plans for the next series in due course to ensure that the Doctor's adventures continue. So we are ending on a relatively positive note. Whether it's Russell, whether it's not, Doctor Who isn't going anywhere. Let me know some of the suggestions you have for people that should showrun Doctor Who in the comments down below. I don't know, it's a tricky job, because I feel like, obviously, you can go with the idea of not having a fan as showrunner, but they've got to know how the show works. They've got to know the law and the rules of the show to write it. As for my take on this, my opinion, I think it's genuinely a 50-50 at the moment. We could be seeing Russell and that lot wrap it up next year, big bombastic special, but then if they leave Bad Wolf, what's the future there? Who's funding it? Who's making it? What studio? New TARDIS set? Like, would you go from that giant expensive one to a smaller one? Like, it's so difficult. But point is, the show's not going anywhere. At least unless plans change and it all collapses, and then we're all sad. But only time will tell. Thank you very much for watching this video. There's been a lot of speculation here, so let me know what you are thinking in the comments down below. Have I missed anything? Because there have been so many quotes thrown around over the past couple of days, it's kind of mad. So thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share, helps me out. Cheers, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Confused Adipose YouTube channel.
I will destroy you!
She's not seen a single episode.
No, I've watched your episodes.
Keep these sonic screwdrivers.
What else am I saying about the film? Don't watch this one.